Hi guys, today we are going to start reading Chapter 2. Chapter 2 on your book demonstrates some effective techniques through which you can have a proper understanding of the poems. Let's have a look at some of these techniques. The first one is to read poem more than once. If you want to be able to fully cherish, appreciate, and keep the poem in your mind, you should read the poem more than once. Actually, the poem is not paper to be read hastily. It would be better if you don't take a cursory glance over the poem. The next technique is to keep a dictionary by you and use it. You won't understand the meaning of a poem without perceiving and analyzing the meaning of keywords in the poem. You may have to consider all meanings of a word. You may have to search for the etymology of a word or look for the obsolete meaning of a word that is no longer used in contemporary era. So not only do you enjoy when you read a poem, but also you will enlarge your vocabulary list. Another effective technique is to read so as to hear the sounds of the words in your mind. Poetry is written to be heard, so read it aloud and listen carefully to the sounds, rhymes, and music it creates. When you are making the sounds in your mouth, pay attention to the sounds. Even if you get distracted by your own voice, tell your friend to read it out loud. Besides, always pay attention to what poem is saying. While you are reading a poem aloud, don't forget to pay attention to its main subject. Try to answer this question: what is the poem about? Then find who the speaker is. Who is the doer or subject of the actions in the poem? Who is the addressee in the poem, if there is any? The last technique is to practice reading poems aloud. Read poems passionately, but not too passionately. Don't read poems in a monotonous tone as if you are reading lines of newspapers or magazines. Moreover, don't add too much emotions to your reading. The poem itself contains emotions, so it doesn't need any excessive emotion. Furthermore, read neither too fast nor too slow. Just read clearly and eloquently. And finally, while you are reading poems, rhythmical pattern and punctuation are really important. Do not put excessive emphasis on syllables. Do not put a full stop at the end of each line as you do in prose. Pay attention to the comma and pauses. Sometimes the idea is not completed in a line and it will be continued in the next line, so don't drop your voice at the end of each line. Well, some literary scholars believe that it is useful for the novices to paraphrase the poem in order to understand it perfectly. Paraphrase means to state lines of a poem in another way that makes its meaning clear. To be more precise, it means to say the lines of a poem as simple as you can, showing all the ideas and themes of the poem clearly. More importantly, there are some questions that may help you to understand the poem more effectively. The first one is, who is the speaker? The second one, what is the occasion? Always consider this fact that the speaker and the poet may not be the same person. Generally, the speaker is someone other than the poet. Another important fact that we should keep in mind is that we should not analyze a poem based on its writer's biography or life. However, knowing about the life of the poet, the period in which he lives, and the literary and artistic movements that were common in his or her time will help us to understand the poem fully. Another fact that should be considered is that by and large poems are dramatic. Many poems are dramatic as they are sharing the viewpoint of a fictional character, I mean the speaker, in a particular situation, or in fact an imaginary situation. For example, fighting in a battle. And this speaker is not necessarily the poet, as I have mentioned earlier. And this experience doesn't necessarily belong to the poet. Another important question that helps us to perceive the poem is, what is the central purpose of the poem? Maybe the speaker is reciting history of a nation, maybe he is telling some myth of a country, maybe he is showing human character under particular situations, maybe he is expressing a memorable, significant, or poignant emotion and feeling. Or maybe the poem is written to discuss or challenge an idea, conventions, or attitude. Well, the last important question that we should ask while we are reading a poem is, by what means is that purpose achieved? The purpose of poetry is not to pacify and alleviate our pain. Although it is able to do so, its purpose is to make us stop and think, to make us awake, to dazzle us, to make us see things better or in a different way.